just a little. The street was wiping off the night. A bus stop sign kept leaning sideways. I laughed and left it in my sight. The kettle clicked, then stopped. I let the silence stay a while. The list on my fridge can wait. The dust can keep its place. I reached for nothing important and somehow changed the pace. Leave the window open just a little. Leave the window open for a while. Maybe I miss things on purpose when I hold the day too tight. Leave the window open just a little. A receipt moved across the counter, carried by the quiet air. I folded back an old newspaper, then left it sitting there. Across the hall, a door closed. Someone was starting their day. I thought I needed a direction, so I kept drawing every line. But the best part of this morning walked in without asking this time. Maybe I've been shutting out small chances by trying to name every sign. Leave the window open just a little. Leave the window open for a while. Maybe I miss things on purpose. Leave the window open and let them arrive. The curtain moves again. Morning stays a little longer.
5 minutes early again. Nobody here yet. The station clock moved 1 minute, and one more after that. The paper bag sat on the bench beside a folded map. I checked my sleeve, not the time, like it might help somehow. The doors kept opening and closing. Names rolled across the screen. Everyone seemed to know somewhere they were supposed to be. 5 minutes early, every time. 5 minutes early. Never mind, maybe I leave too much room for things that might not happen. 5 minutes early, still I try. A woman dropped a grocery list, then tucked it in her coat. A bicycle crossed the corner and disappeared below. I bought a drink, then waited long enough for the ice to fade. The truth is I arrived before moments, just to keep them from leaving me. Some chances never showed up anyway. That wasn't the fault of being early. Maybe I've been saving a seat for a version of life I can't keep. 5 minutes early, every time. 5 minutes early, it's alright. Some things arrive, some
coffee got cold again. Steam left the cup before I noticed. The page stayed blank beside my hand. I circled one small thing to finish, then drew a line I never planned. The spoon stood still near the edge, like it was waiting to. The morning kept moving around me, chairs filled and emptied twice. I told myself I'd start in a minute. I've been saying that all my life. The coffee got cold again, cold again. Maybe I keep small promises where nobody can see. The coffee got cold again while I was avoiding me. A bookmark slipped from a novel and landed under my shoe. I picked it up and read one sentence, the one I never made it through. Outside the glass, a green light changed and someone crossed alone. I always thought the unfinished parts would somehow protect me from regret, but every cup I leave untouched turns into something I won't forget. Maybe the cost of staying careful is missing the life I haven't met. The coffee got cold again, cold again. Small promises on the table. The coffee got cold again while I looked away. Cold again. One last sip, not warm, still enough for now.
The doors closed too soon. That wasn't my train. The platform emptied in seconds. The timetable shook in the wind. I checked the route 3 different times, still couldn't say where I'd been. The station bell rang once, then left the air alone. I had a meeting across the river, a plan written down at 8. The day looked smaller from a distance than it did when I was late. Wrong train, right day. Nothing followed the lines I made. Maybe I hold too tightly to places I haven't seen. Wrong train, right day. A bookstore stood beside the exit. I never noticed it before. A handwritten sign above the doorway hung uneven by the door. I walked inside for a minute and stayed an hour more. I spent years treating every detour like proof that I was falling behind, but missing one expected moment made room for something I couldn't find. Maybe not every mistake is a loss. Maybe some arrive disguised. Wrong train, right day. The map changed anyway. Some doors closed too soon. Wrong train, right day. this time.
Rain marks on the glass. Afternoon light. I took the table by the window, the one nobody seemed to choose. A courier stopped to tie a shoelace, then disappeared beyond the view. A sugar packet folded twice stayed beside my hand. People kept arriving somewhere without asking if it fit. I watched reflections cross each other, then vanish into it. A table by the glass, just enough. A table by the glass for today. Maybe I spent too much time trying to understand every road. A table by the glass lets them go. A woman laughed into her scarf, then turned the corner fast. Two students shared an umbrella till the crossing light had passed. The room stayed warm near the window and colder near the door. I used to think every answer would arrive if I looked long enough. But maybe life isn't a picture, maybe it's people passing through it. Maybe the things I keep chasing were never meant to hold still. A table by the glass, just enough for today. Not every road needs a name. A table by the glass. Rain fades from the pane. Someone leaves, someone stays. Dun, 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 dun.
Inside a jacket pocket, still there. I found the ticket this morning behind a grocery receipt. The ink had almost disappeared, the corners curled with heat. I turned it over twice, like that could change a thing. The date was hard and narrow to read, and the reason I kept it. Some objects learn to stay around after moments. Forget them, I kept the ticket all this time. I kept the ticket, don't ask why. Maybe I save small evidence when I'm afraid to let things in. I kept the ticket and never looked again. The train had left at 7:30, according to the faded print. I can't remember what we talked about, only pieces of it. A red coat passed near the platform, then vanished with the crowd. I used to think holding on to something meant I was honoring what it was. But maybe I was keeping proof that I couldn't accept what it wasn't. Maybe some memories stay heavy because 'cause I never put them down. I kept the ticket too long, the ink faded anyway. Some things stay past their moment. I kept the ticket, then let it rest. Back in the drawer quietly, nothing changed. Enough did.
Tuesday feels different. Today it does. Tuesday feels different. The bakery opened right on time. A chalkboard leaned outside. Someone erased a single letter, then smiled and stepped aside. A paper cup near the curb rolled halfway down the street. Nothing special happened yet, at least that's what I'd say. But small things keep collecting in unexpected ways. Tuesday feels different. Today it does. Tuesday feels different. Just because maybe I've spent too many mornings looking past what's already here. Tuesday feels different. This one does. The florist moved the buckets out to catch a little sun. A child pointed at a yellow sign, then ran before I saw which one. The crossing light turned green, and nobody seemed in a rush. I always thought good days arrived with reasons large enough to name, but maybe they begin much smaller before they ever earn that claim. Maybe I've ignored 100 gifts, waiting for something grander to change. Tuesday feels different. Today it does. No big reason, still enough small things gather without a sound. Tuesday feels different right now. The sign swings softly. An ordinary day stays bright.
I missed the shortcut on purpose. The bookstore lights were still on, though most of the block was dark. A delivery truck stood idling beside a quiet park. I crossed the street twice without a reason I could name. The fastest road was waiting just where it always stayed. But tonight I wasn't ready to end another day. The long way home again tonight. The long way home feels alright. Maybe I rushed through too many hours, then wonder where they went. The long way home makes them stay. dog pulled gently on its leash toward a corner store. Someone carried flowers carefully like they'd done it before. A bus went past, half empty, and disappeared in blue light. I used to think slowing down meant I was falling behind, but I've lost more moments hurrying than I ever did taking my time. Maybe the things worth keeping never asked me to run for them. The long way home again tonight. No destination change, just the distance I allowed. The long way home for a while. The city hums softly. I turn one more corner slowly.
The same blue sweater on the chair. I watered the plant by the doorway a little later than I should. One leaf had started turning yellow, the rest still looked good. I moved the pot towards sunlight and opened half the blinds. The week left dishes in the sink and notes across the desk. Nothing dramatic happened here, just things I hadn't checked. Still here somehow, still here somehow. This year maybe I spent too much time counting everything that didn't work out. Still here somehow. That's enough. The neighbor carried boxes downstairs and waved without slowing down. A bicycle bell rang once outside, then faded through the town. The afternoon stayed quiet without asking much of me. I thought surviving would look different, something larger I could prove. But most days it looks like showing up and doing one small thing you almost skipped. Maybe I've been overlooking strength because it never entered like a storm. Still here somehow, still here, not perfect, not gone. Small things grow slowly, still here somehow. Today toward light, so do I, a little.
Nonsense, still there. Nonsense. Your name said at the top of the screen, above a half-finished line. I changed one word, then changed it back at least 4 different times. The cursor blinked patiently, more certain than I was. Outside the train kept moving, station after station. I kept editing a sentence that never left the page. Your name in drafts. Still tonight. Your name in drafts. Out of sight. Maybe I hide behind revisions when the truth feels too direct. Your name in drafts. Not gone yet. A notification appeared briefly, then disappeared again. Someone laughed across the aisle. I looked up and then looked down. The window glass held my face and half the city too. I told myself unsent words could never do any harm, but silence leaves its own fingerprints on the things we never start. Maybe what I feared was hearing an answer different from my heart. Your name in drafts. Still tonight. Half a sentence, half a lie. Some words stay too long. Your name in drafts until they fade. The screen goes dark quietly. One line remains unsent.
Lunch break, sunlight across the counter. Half a sandwich left on a paper tray. A slow afternoon settling in. The corner table opened up just as I walked inside. A menu curled along the edges from being turned so many times. A mustard packet near my sleeve stayed unopened all afternoon. I checked the time and put it down like there was nowhere urgent to be. Outside, a delivery van unloaded boxes one by one. The street kept moving carefully without asking anyone to run. I watched the shadow of a passing tree slide across the floor. Half a sandwich left for later. Half a sandwich left on the tray. Maybe I spend too much of my life saving parts of every day. Half a sandwich left just in case. Half a sandwich left anyway. A student closed a notebook slowly and packed away a pen. An older man folded yesterday's paper, then opened it again. The ice had melted in my glass long before I took a sip. A song I almost recognized floated softly through the room. For a second, I remembered something I couldn't fully place. Then it drifted out of reach before I could give it a name. The afternoon leaned toward evening without a warning sign. Some days don't arrive dramatically, they simply change with time. A chair moved back, a door clicked shut, and another hour was gone. Half a sandwich left for later. Half a sandwich left on the tray. Maybe I keep tomorrow waiting before today has had its say. Half a sandwich left just in case. Half a sandwich left again. I always thought being prepared would keep disappointment away. So I saved conversations, saved ideas, saved pieces of the day, but nothing stayed. bread, not the light. Maybe the things worth having need to be lived while they're alive. Half a sandwich left, no reason. Half a sandwich left today. Some moments don't need saving. Some moments can stay. Half a sandwich left on a tray. Enough remains anyway. The sunlight shifts across the table. Someone waves before leaving. The empty plate stays quiet. Afternoon settles slowly away.
The sign was still glowing past closing time. One more hour, maybe two. I stopped outside the corner store for something I didn't need. The handwritten hours on the window had faded at the edges. A stack of oranges near the door caught the last of the street light. The owner nodded from behind the counter like he'd seen this day before. The road was quieter than usual. The bus passed every now and then. The city felt unfinished somehow, like it wasn't ready to sleep yet. A radio played somewhere inside, low enough to miss the words. The store stayed open late tonight. The store stayed open late past the light. Maybe not everything important arrives before the closing bell. The store stayed open late, and so did I. The store stayed open late for a while. A woman bought a loaf of bread and counted out the change. A teenager searched 3 different aisles, then left with something strange. The cooler hummed near the back like it had all evening long. I picked up things, then put them back more than once before I chose a small notebook from the bottom shelf without knowing why. Maybe I wanted proof that tomorrow was already coming. The clock above the register moved carefully ahead. Some nights ask for answers, some just offer time instead. The bell above the entrance door rang softer than before. The store stayed open late tonight. The store stayed open late past the light. Maybe I've been leaving too soon from things that needed one more chance. The store stayed open late long enough. The store stayed open late for me. I used to think missed opportunities arrive with noise and certainty, but some of them look ordinary, like a door unlocked unexpectedly. Maybe the reason I remember this night has nothing to do with what I bought. Maybe it was learning I didn't have to rush home from every thought. The store stayed open late tonight. One more hour of light. Some doors close eventually. This one stayed a little longer. The store door stayed open late enough. The bell rings one last time, the sign goes dark. Slowly, a notebook rests under my arm. The street keeps going quietly.
The fan turns slowly above the room. Afternoon light on the wall. I made a list after breakfast, then left it folded in a book. A few things waited for attention, a few more than I thought they would. The laundry basket near the stairs stayed exactly where it was. I poured some water into a glass and watched the ice begin to fade. Outside, a gardener trimmed the hedges, one branch at a time. Nothing seemed to hurry, nothing seemed behind. A screen door closed somewhere nearby and settled with the wind. Nothing needed fixing today, nothing needed fixing right away. Maybe I keep searching for problems when the moment's doing fine. Nothing needed fixing for a while. A neighbor waved from across the driveway, holding a bag of soil. We talked about the weather briefly, then stood there for a while. A bird landed on the fence and left before I looked again. The afternoon kept unfolding without asking to be improved. I've spent so much time repairing days that were never broken, treating every quiet hour like something left unfinished. Maybe peace feels unfamiliar because it doesn't ask for anything. Nothing needed fixing today, no missing piece to chase. Some days arrive complete enough. Nothing needed fixing this time. The fan turns slowly, the list stays in the book. The day moves on anyway.
This wasn't the address I wrote down years ago. A moving box sits in the hallway 3 months after I arrived. There's still a marker on the cardboard, spelling one word twice. A photograph inside a drawer, slipped behind some folded shirts. I picked it up, then put it back without deciding what it meant. The plans I made at 23 look smaller from here now. Not worse, not better, just different somehow. Different than I planned, by far. Different than I planned so far. Maybe I measured every future against a life that never came. Different than I planned, still mine. The coffee shop around the corner knows my order before I speak. park I never thought I'd visit has become part of the week. A bench remains near the fountain where I stop more than I admit. Some places grow without permission until they quietly belong. I kept comparing every chapter to a draft that wasn't real. Some things that were already happening by chasing how I thought they'd feel. Maybe disappointment stayed so long because I never changed the picture. Different than I planned, that's true. Different than I planned, and yet some roads become the right road long after you resist them. Different than I planned, still here. The old map folds closed, the key fits anyway.
A square of sunlight on the floor, moving slowly across the room. The book I meant to finish yesterday stayed open where I left it. A yellow pencil crossed the page halfway through a sentence. The window screen caught a breeze and settled back again. I heard a truck down the street and nothing after that. The afternoon wasn't asking to become anything more. It simply kept arriving through the doorway and across the floor. A quiet hour without a plan stayed longer than expected. Sunlight on the floor for a while. Sunlight on the floor, passing by. Maybe I spend too many days trying to hold what likes to move. Sunlight on the floor never does. A neighbor watered tomato plants along the fence next door. Someone carried folded blankets across a second floor porch. The shadow line near the bookshelf shifted inch by inch. I looked away for just a moment and found it somewhere else. Most things leave without announcing the exact time they'll go. The seasons know this better than any of us know. The room stayed warm, the light moved on, neither one was wrong. I've treated change like an interruption, something standing in the way. But every part of this afternoon was changing while it stayed. Maybe the reason it felt peaceful was because it never tried to remain. Sunlight on the floor, still here. Sunlight on the floor, not for long. Some things matter because they move. Sunlight on the floor. Across the room, the light reaches the doorway, then disappears quietly. The room remains warm enough.
I almost said no. until I didn't. The message sat there through breakfast, unread for almost an hour. A simple invitation for coffee after work. I reached for my keys, then stopped, then reached again. The morning passed like usual, but something small had shifted. The easiest answer was familiar, the one I always choose. Stay home, keep quiet, call it being careful. I changed my mind today, just today. I changed my mind today, on the way. Maybe I've mistaken comfort for every reason not to move. I changed my mind today. And when the cafe was louder than expected, someone laughed near the door. A bicycle helmet sat on the table across from mine for most of the hour. We talked about ordinary things, a broken lamp, a weekend trip, nothing important on paper. Yet somehow it mattered. The sky turned pale above the rooftops as evening settled in. Some changes don't announce themselves, they simply begin. A traffic light changed colors without asking permission. I kept waiting for confidence before I let myself start, but confidence never showed up. Only a slightly open door. Maybe courage isn't certainty, maybe it's moving first. I changed my mind today, that's all. One small turn, one call, some roads open quietly. I changed my mind today. And when the message stays in the thread, the evening stays with me. A small decision still growing.
A train in the distance, then quiet again. The apartment upstairs creaks softly, like someone crossing the floor. A dog barked once beyond the alley, then didn't bark anymore. The kettle cooled on the stove beside an unread page. The evening sat near the window without asking to be noticed. I used to chase complete silence whenever life became too much. But silence can feel unfamiliar when you've been carrying enough. A distant sound, a passing car fades before it stays. Just enough noise tonight, just enough noise feels right. Maybe I don't need perfect stillness to know that I'm alright. Just enough noise in the room. Someone closed a gate outside a little harder than they meant. A television through a nearby wall leaked pieces of an argument. A twice, then finally stopped. The city kept breathing softly, like it had somewhere to be tomorrow. I've spent years rearranging moments, trying to make them feel complete. But maybe peace isn't the absence of every interruption we meet. Maybe it's letting the world exist without needing to quiet it first. Just enough noise tonight, not too much, not none. The city hums softly, just enough noise for now. A train fades far away, the room stays warm. The evening settles gently.
Another seat beside me, still open. Another seat beside me. The cafe filled up slowly as the evening settled in. A coat rested on the chair across, waiting for someone to walk in. I stirred my drink once, then watched the phone disappear. The door swung wide every few minutes for strangers passing through. Most days I don't notice how often I sit alone, not lonely, just accustomed to carrying the hours myself. Another seat beside me, still open. Another seat beside me tonight. Maybe I've become so comfortable with space I didn't ask to share. Another seat beside me, waiting there. You arrived without an entrance, just a wave through the glass, a backpack hanging from one shoulder, a little rain on your sleeves. We talked about simple things, the new bakery down the street, a movie neither of us finished, a place we'd both meant to see. The room didn't change dramatically, the lights stayed soft and low. Yet somehow the evening felt fuller than it had an hour ago. A spoon touched porcelain, and somewhere music played. I always imagined connection would arrive as something rare, but maybe it happens quietly, one ordinary chair at a time. Maybe the moments that stay with us begin before we recognize them. Another seat beside me, not empty. Another seat beside me right now. Some company arrives softly. Another seat beside me somehow. Two cups cool on the table. The conversation moves slowly. The lights remain a little longer.
Clouds all afternoon, no rain yet. forecast promised thunderstorms across the evening sky. Neighbors move their chairs indoors and close the windows tight. A towel hung on the railing, waiting for a sudden change. I watch the trees from the balcony, expecting something to arrive. The clouds gathered with intention, at least that's how they seem. Some things look certain from a distance until they quietly leave. The wind slowed down near sunset, and nothing followed through. Rain that never came tonight. Rain that never came after all. Maybe I keep preparing my heart for things that never fall. Rain that never came at all. The garden soil stayed thirsty. The flowers leaned toward dusk. A bicycle crossed the empty street, leaving tracks in dust. I folded up the umbrella and left it by the door. The evening kept its promises, just not the ones I thought before. I've spent whole seasons waiting for a moment to appear, not noticing the days already happening. While I looked somewhere else, the sky grew clear above the rooftops, without explaining why. I used to call it disappointment when expected things went missing, but some of the roads I treasure most began with plans that didn't listen. Maybe the cost of expectation is overlooking what actually arrived. Rain that never came tonight. The clouds passed anyway. Some hopes leave quietly, some days stay. Beautiful rain that never came. Still, the umbrella rests by the door. The stars appear one by one. The dry street shines softly.
Lights across the street, one by one. The evening settles without a sound. The bookstore closed an hour ago, its sign already dark. A bicycle leans against a railing near the corner park. The traffic slowed to almost none along the avenue. I stayed awake a little longer than I originally planned. The day left small reminders scattered here and there. A folded receipt, a coffee stain, a jacket on a chair. Lights across the street, still shining lights across the street tonight. Maybe I spent too many evenings looking back instead of here. Lights across the street appear, lights across the street and stay. A window opened on the third floor and closed a minute later. Someone watered plants on a balcony before disappearing indoors. The newspaper at my feet had tomorrow's date already. I turned one page, then stopped reading and listened to the room instead. The refrigerator hummed softly in the kitchen down the hall, a sound I've heard 1,000 times but never really heard at all. Nothing asked for attention, nothing asked to be remembered, yet somehow the ordinary details felt larger than the day before. The night moved in carefully without replacing anything. All year I've been collecting moments without realizing what they meant. A missed train, a quiet cafe, an invitation I almost skipped, the ticket I kept, the message unsent, the sunlight crossing the floor. Maybe a life isn't changed at once. Maybe it's changed by noticing more. Lights across the street still shining, no grand ending tonight. Small moments remain, small moments become lights across the street, one by one. Lights across the street. Enough. The last room light stays on, then fades